All right, you guys, thanks for coming. It's a nice turnout today, and it's not the easiest time to come, so clearly you guys want this information, so hopefully you guys get what you need. I've been super excited for it. We talk about nutrition with you guys a lot, but the kind of piece that I always get back is, even though we give you bits and pieces here and there, that you don't always really know kind of where to start or where to go from there. So the goal today is kind of give you a macro view of information. This is a non-judgmental nutrition planning, what works for you. And so we'll give you a lot of information, and at the end, we will help you try to figure out what's going to work for you long term, and we'll help you with your macros. So we'll do a little bit of the like workshop-y stuff. So I'd like to do the info first, and then if you guys have questions, just hang on to them till the end because we might get to it. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole because she and I could talk nutrition all the time. So if you guys get us off, we will go down that hole. So it's going to be kind of more of a macro view of stuff. This is not everything that's out there right now, but it's a lot of the main kind of points that we want you guys to learn. Okay. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So we don't have a plan to go off of. We're not going to get that far. All right. 95% of all diets fail. Why?
They're not sustainable.
Oh, right there. They're too restrictive, or they're unrealistic, or they're complicated, or unsustainable. Okay. So we hear things, sounds like a really great idea. We're all in for a week or a month, and then we fall off, right? It happens to everybody. So I love this. If your diet has an end date, your results will too. So what we have worked on a lot, and we say it all the time, these 6-week challenges are awesome, but what we want you guys to focus on is long-term sustainable goals, okay? So use the 6 weeks to kind of dial things in occasionally. We like to do that as well, but we want you to build the habits that you're going to maintain throughout the whole entire year. That's why we added that year-long challenge, because we don't want to see you guys yo-yoing between those challenges, okay? Life happens, and we want to have kind of that consistency. So that's what our goal is today, that we find the stuff that works for us kind of long-term. So when you're choosing a diet plan or a strategy, the term diet, it's just how you eat. I don't necessarily mean it in, the term that everybody kind of thinks of it. So you're going to choose what you're ready, willing, and able to execute, okay? If it's something that doesn't make sense to you, you're not all in, you're not able to, meaning you don't have the resources for it, it's not a good plan for you. Consider your current lifestyle. So your time, I know that's a big one for you guys. You're super busy. So do you have time to do everything that diet is going to ask you to do? Consider your resources. That could be money. That could be knowledge. Do you understand everything that you need to do? Do you have time to get it all? Or are you going to be willing to change your lifestyle to adopt a new diet plan? This happens all the time. That's totally fine. There's people, especially people that have a lot of weight to lose, they sometimes say they have to find a new identity. And they change a lot of things about themselves. They might change who they hang out with and where they spend their time and how they eat. And they kind of have to in order to adopt that new healthy lifestyle. So some people are willing to do that. Does it align with your goals? So I really like this one because we'll ask you guys. I had somebody today said, what's your goal? He said, I want to see abs. I said, okay, great. What's your plan? He said, I'm going to bulk. I said, that's the wrong plan. That doesn't align, okay? So, but we have to understand what it is. And I do hear the abs thing a lot, right? There's a lot that goes into that. And if anybody who struggles with trying to get those abs to show understands how challenging it can be if you don't have the genetics that make that a little bit easier, you're probably going to get to a point where you're like, yeah, I don't need abs. That's okay. Like I have them. I don't need to see them. They're there. And then choose a diet that works for you, not because it worked for somebody else. So we all have our friend or our neighbor or our coworker. Oh my God, you look great. What are you doing right now? I'm doing this, this, and this. Well, that's amazing. I'm going to do that too. You don't know if it's going to work for you. It works for them. You don't know that it's going to work for you. And then the stuff that works long-term, it's the simple stuff. It's the boring stuff. There's no magic tricks. So if you guys are expecting me to come in here and be like, here's the secret, I have it for you. Ready? No, it's not that. Okay. All right, so I want to talk about weight loss versus fat loss because this is a big one. A lot of people say their goal is weight loss. So weight loss is a reduction on the scale, and could be a result of body fat, which is what we want, right? We want to lose body fat. You could be losing water, meaning you're less hydrated. That happens usually initially with any kind of diet strategy. You could be losing muscle. Is that what we want? No. You could lose a limb and you're going to lose weight on that scale. Okay. So it tells you nothing about your actual like health and fitness. So we want to be specific and we want to make sure that we understand what we're trying to lose and what we're trying to not lose so that we're picking strategies that align with that. Okay. And we're going to talk about those strategies. This is why they're so important. Okay. So we want to lose body fat without losing muscle. And in order to do that, we have to be pretty specific in our strategy. We do have to eat in a caloric deficit, so taking in fewer calories than you are putting out. You have to resistance train, okay? You have to send the signal to your body that you need the muscle that you have, all right? If you don't do that, your body's going to take the muscle first. The muscle is what uses the most calories in your body. So when you drop your calories down and your body needs to adapt to that new set of calories, it's going to figure out the most efficient way to adapt to that. Muscle takes the most calories to maintain and to build. And it's like, oh, it's like when your monthly budget comes, right? Oh, I don't make as much money as I used to. Where am I going to cut from? The easiest place first. Body's going to take from muscle first, unless we tell it we need that muscle. And so in order to tell it that we need that muscle, don't take it away, we have to resistance train, meaning lifting heavy and being very deliberate with that. So the workouts work for themselves, but when you guys are in here, you have to work and you have to be willing to go heavier. It's not the little weights. It's not the endurance piece, okay? And you have to eat an appropriate amount of protein. We always aim for that 1 gram per pound of goal body weight. There is a range, but we say 1 for 1. It's easy for you guys to remember, but we can give you a range, okay? It's like 0.8 to 1.2 that we can work with. And then you want to move more, get some walking and exercise. Okay, best diet. It's the one that you will follow consistently over time. I don't have the best diet for you. Renee doesn't have the best diet for you. I have what works for me. It might not work for you. So whatever that you can follow long-term consistently. The magic's not the diet, it's the caloric deficit, okay? The magic's not the diet, it's the caloric deficit. Keto's not magic. Intermittent fasting's not magic. Portion control's not magic. They all just create that caloric deficit, okay? So we always want to focus. We're going to dive into those strategies, but I always go back to this. We've got some big rocks, the big pillars, the main things that are going to move you towards your goals. And a lot of people get stuck in the weeds. We have a lot of people that'll come in and they'll say, you know what, I think I'm probably eating too little, and that's why I'm not losing weight, because we've heard that. Or I think my hormones are off. Or I heard that if I eat my dessert first, it's better because then when I eat my protein after, it processes it slower. Are you getting whole foods? Are you getting your workouts? How's your sleep? Is your sleep good? And usually those things aren't consistent for most people. Those are the big main things. So we don't need to get stuck in the little weeds. I'm not saying they don't have a place. I'm saying for 95% of the people that are here, we don't have to look at those first. We're going to look at these first. Okay. So I know that there's people that have very specific needs, and I'm not discounting that. If you know who you are, you have a specific medical condition, of course, we're going to take that into consideration. This is, again, that macro view for the majority of people. Okay. So ways to create caloric deficits. We're going to find the right restriction. So we create deficits by restricting one of 3 things. Either the window of time you eat, so intermittent fasting, right? Restricting the intake of calories by tracking your food. So you can do that with apps. You can do that with scales. You can do that with measuring cups. Or you can restrict certain foods or whole food groups. So keto, a lot of the popular diets, right? Carnivore, vegan, they take out entire food groups. Even a whole foods diet, you're taking out all the processed food. All of those will create calorie deficits. Okay, we're going to talk about each one of those kind of briefly, and then we'll talk about some pros and cons for those. And I want you guys to just think about what hits for you, what resonates, and what kind of matches with your lifestyle, or maybe stuff you've been interested in trying. It's up to you. You guys be curious, be like scientific about your body, try different things and find what works. You may pivot at a different point. That's fine. I've tried a whole bunch of things. Renee's probably tried a whole bunch of things until we find kind of how we feel. They all worked for a little bit. But if I didn't keep up with it, then it's not for me, right? Okay. So intermittent fasting, most common, it's about a 16-hour fasting window plus an 8-hour eating window. So an example, I start eating at 11 a.m., finish by 7 p.m. That says p.n., and I'm going to have to fix that. Fast between 7 p.m. and 11 a.m. the next day. There's smaller windows. You can choose how many meals you want to eat in that window of time. Most people do 1 to 2, so larger meals in that time period. And then some people will choose a smaller eating window or may add in like 2 24-hour fasting periods per week or even longer. I've heard of that. Fasting in itself is fine. It creates a caloric deficit. There's nothing magic about the fast, okay? So there's some people that have like religious or cultural or spiritual commitments to fasting. That's a really great reason to do it. If it works for your lifestyle, that can be a good reason, but in and of itself, it's not the only way to do these things. Okay, so some pros and cons. I love this. My dentist told me I could floss as soon as I knew I was done eating for the day. Imagine knowing when you're done eating. So intermittent fasting would do that, right? So some pros to it. It creates the caloric deficit because it's going to shorten the time that you can get your food in, right? So you only have 8 hours to eat. You're not going to be snacking all day. You're going to have bigger meals. A lot of people say that their hunger cues naturally kind of follow that. There's a lot of people that say, I don't even get hungry till like 10, 11 a.m. So it works really well for me. And I don't need to, feel restricted in the morning. People who like rules, I love rules, enjoy the clear. What? Do I love rules? So people who like rules do really well with this because there's a clear boundary, right? So they set it and they follow it. We have rule followers. And then you don't necessarily need to restrict the food that you eat. We would suggest that you do change the food that you eat. Overall, we would suggest that, and we'll talk more about that. But you don't necessarily have to because you're getting that caloric deficit in that smaller window of time. So some cons, protein. Very challenging to hit our protein targets in a small window, especially when you're eating 1 or 2 meals. You cannot eat 150 grams or 200 grams of protein in a meal. I mean, good luck. You're not eating anything else. You would feel terrible. So that can be really challenging. So if you're trying to build muscle especially, this can make it a little bit tough. The larger meals can be discomfort in terms of digestion and things like that. Some people break it up into smaller meals. You can choose how you want to do that, okay? Again, there's no judgment. This is just information. Okay, calorie restriction through tracking. So we have lots of different tracking apps. Some of the main ones, MyFitnessPal, a lot of people use. I know Chronometer is one that some people use. Lose It's the new one that I'm obsessed with, and I really, really like this one. And we can talk more about those later in detail. And Carbon's another new one that I was excited about until I found Lose It, and now I'm more excited about Lose It. You can weigh or measure your food. I did that little video. We've got the scale. I've got measuring cups or macro cups. I actually use these for a very long time because I like color-coded things, and this is a vegetable, and that's how big it is, and you could just do this. And so you can buy things like this. It helps you. You can use measuring cups. You don't need anything fancy, but it's just another way of doing it. And then we have the hand portions. And so on that little cheat sheet, there's some hand portion options on there. A palm is usually a size of protein, and again, it kind of works because it's a little bit looser, but if you're a bigger person, you get a little bit bigger portions. And we just figure out how many of each of those portions you get in a day based off of your overall calories and macros. We would help you with that. But if you're somebody that doesn't like to track, hand portions are a great way to do that, okay? So some pros to tracking. The apps can create a deficit without changing your food. Again, you don't have to change anything. You could eat all processed food. As like when I first started trying to lose weight, that's what I did. This is years ago, so it was not great. Low calories. I could eat anything I wanted. I have 300 calories left. Great. What weird little wrapper can I open that has junk in it? And I did that, and I lost weight. But it can be a great tool to learn how much you're eating, what portion sizes are. If you've never tracked, it is eye-opening to see how much food you are eating in a sitting and how many calories are in servings. Okay. One of the things that happen all the time are people grossly underestimate how much they eat. If you are not tracking, especially people who are overweight, tend to very much underestimate the amount that they are taking in and very much overestimate the amount of exercise or activity they are getting. So to do this, it's really eye-opening, and I suggest that some way, shape, or form you guys track so that you can kind of understand what that looks like for you in a day versus what you're consistently doing. It is easier to track whole foods, so we like that because it kind of naturally guides you towards whole foods. Also, they're going to keep you more satiated, and it just makes the whole process better. Some cons, they're not always accurate. Choosing from a food somebody else manually input into those apps, sometimes that happens, right? You don't know if it's accurate. Even scanning the barcodes on things, labels are allowed to be off by 20%. They're allowed to. So just because it says it's 150 calories, might not be 150 calories. So there's still some room there, okay? If you're still continuing to eat a lot of highly processed foods, your calories are gonna go really quickly and you're gonna feel hungry. That can be a good thing because then you start realizing, oh, I only have this much and I wanna make it last. So I'm gonna have my chicken and my vegetables and my quinoa, and then if I have a little room left over, I'll have my ice cream. And then they can be time consuming in the beginning initially to add your food into the app. I know that's a big one for people when you're first tracking it. Typically, we all eat pretty consistently the same types of foods ongoing. So once they're in there, it tends to be easier. And they've gotten so much easier to track your food. Several of the apps, Lose It's One, has a photo where you can take a picture of your plate and it'll automatically, and it was fairly accurate. So I had like chorizo and eggs and kale, and it picked it up. It didn't pick up chorizo, it picked up sausage, which was fine. I swapped it out for chorizo, and it did a very good job. So you might have to tweak tiny little things, but it was way faster than having to type something in. Egg roll in a bowl, you guys know what that is? It looks like a big pile of mush, and it totally got it. And I was like, great, that was so easy. I loved it. MyFitnessPal has that too. It wasn't quite as on it as Lose It was. So I was practicing these last couple of weeks for you guys. And then some of the apps have a cost associated. So some of them have a base free version. Some of them have the pro version where it gets, into the macros and things like that. So there might be a cost. All right, calorie restriction through eliminating food. So here's some of the main diets that we hear about, and we can talk about more of them too. But keto, generally high fat, moderate protein, low carb, no fruits, no starches. Carnivore, we've had a couple people doing this recently in some of our challenge. It says it's supposed to be high protein, but what we typically see is it's actually high fat, moderate protein, because usually they're choosing the fattier meats. That's not everybody, but it's pretty much meat-based and other animal products, no fruit, veggies, grains, nuts, legumes. That one's pretty restrictive. Plant-based, so it can be plant-based, it can be vegan, it can be vegetarian. I'm lumping them all into one. So focuses on plant-based foods, fruits, vegetables, and meat, seeds and nuts. Words get hard. Okay, whole grains. And then I put processed alternatives because especially now, because plant-based became such a kind of a booming thing, there's a lot of plant-based alternatives available. You'll see them in the grocery store, right? Mediterranean diet, high vegetables, olive oil, moderate lean protein, allows fruit and legumes. Paleo, more whole foods. It's kind of based on that like more caveman Paleolithic era stuff, right? Meat, eggs, fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, no grains, no legumes, no dairy. I actually do a modified version of that. That's usually where I like to fall. Balanced whole foods diet. This one's great. This is probably where we would direct a lot of people, but eating mostly whole foods or less processed foods. So think about the outside of the grocery store, right? You go in it and it's all the fruits and vegetables, it's the meat, it's the dairy, that kind of stuff. That's what we would want you focusing mostly on. And it doesn't necessarily exclude all processed food, but less processed food and not a ton of stuff from, boxes and bags and things like that. There's gut health focus or an anti-inflammatory diet. So focusing on fixing the gut microbiome with good bacteria, lots of veggies, no sugar, takes out some of the inflammatory foods like soy and gluten and dairy and things like that. And then insulin resistance. So usually lean proteins, healthy fats, whole grains, fruits and veggies, lots of fiber, avoiding refined carbs, sugary foods, and probably more of balanced meals, kind of specifically telling you to eat specific foods together, okay? So pros and cons of restricting through eliminating foods. A lot of them will cut out processed foods, and that's easily going to create a calorie deficit. I will say one thing. If we said to just everybody in the world, you can eat as much as you want as long as it's whole foods, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. This wouldn't be a thing, right? But processed foods are designed to make you overeat. They're designed to be hyper palatable and to make you want to eat and eat and eat in a very small, so that you keep buying them. That's their purpose, and they do a really good job at that. So cutting out processed foods alone even without anything else, you would probably do just fine. Changes from cutting out highly processed foods, you notice those pretty quickly. And kind of, if anybody's ever done a fast, even a 24-hour fast, they're like, I feel amazing. That's this, right? The sugars out of your body, the junk, all that process. That's why you feel amazing. Again, it's not that there's anything in not eating for that length of time, because you could eat whole foods and also feel amazing. It's that processed foods that you're cutting out. So you get less inflammation. Your mood is a big one, skin improvement, energy. It's a good way to identify trigger foods. A lot of us eat in a way, and we're so used to eating in a way that we don't even realize some foods don't actually do well with our bodies. We may not digest them well, and we might. There's a meme, I haven't seen it in a while, but going around that said, like, I wonder if this food that normally hurts my stomach is going to hurt my stomach today, or something like that. And we do that all the time, right? Like, oh, my stomach hurts. I wonder what it was. But I'll just keep eating the same things that I've always eaten. And, when we eliminate foods and then we test them and put them back in, and you can kind of identify, oh, actually, I broke out when I ate that. Oh, my stomach hurt when I ate that. I, had a lot of inflammation, that sort of thing. And then the cons, cutting out entire food groups or macros, that can feel really restrictive for some people, especially things like keto or carnivore. That's a pretty big change, and can be difficult to maintain long-term. It doesn't mean there's not people that can't maintain it long-term. Some people do. You have to know what's going to work for you and see if that is something you think would go. Some of these strategies are going to lead to nutrient deficiencies. Okay, carnivore, plant-based, things like that. When you're cutting out such big chunks of your macros, animal-based products have a ton of nutrients that you need. So for vegans or vegetarians, absolutely, if you want to be vegan and vegetarian, but you have to be very deliberate to make sure you're getting your nutrients elsewhere and your protein. Carnivore, same thing. No fruits, no vegetables, all of the micronutrients that we need, or the antioxidants, things like that, you're not going to get them. You're really sustaining yourself on fat and protein. And so there's a lot of other things there that we want to look at. Let's see. When you start cutting out whole foods, sometimes you start adding those processed substitutions. So I see this happen sometimes with the plant-based thing. Well, I'm going to go plant-based because I heard that meat is bad for you. So now I'm going to eat plant-based, but now I'm going to go to the freezer frozen food section and get all of these processed plant-based foods. I would rather you eat whole foods. Are they bad? No. But if you are taking out whole, maybe animal product food and substituting it with processed plant-based food, you have to really look at that and decide if that makes sense for you. And then low to moderate protein options, again, we're always focused on that muscle maintaining and building. They're not a great option for that. Okay, so we do have some people, we talked a lot about weight loss. We do have some people whose goal is to gain weight. And several of them are what I would call my hard gainers, right? You usually have a difficult time gaining weight. And then I have some people that it's really just about gaining muscle. They've lost the body fat they want to lose, and now they want to gain muscle. So we're not leaving you out. A lot of this still goes for you. You're still going to choose a dietary style that works for you, how you're going to plan and to track it. Tracking is going to be super important, especially for the hard gainers. We'll figure out your calorie and macro targets, and protein is a must. We have to focus that protein because we're not trying to put on a ton of body fat. You will probably put on some body fat, but we want you to really mostly focus on that muscle. So protein is really to be prioritized. Again, with that resistance training, that goes for everybody, but especially here. And then you might need to supplement as needed. I know that I have some people that don't want to supplement anything. I will eat any whole food you tell me, but if you tell me that I have to supplement with something, and I totally get that, that is your choice. But again, you have to look at the pros and cons of, are you getting the nutrients you need from the food you're taking in? And if you're not, there's nothing wrong with supplementing. We're going to talk a little more about supplements too. And so when we want to look at gaining weight, we would start by increasing our calories by 150 to 250 calories per day. And we'd stay there for about 3 weeks until we get comfortable. And then we do it again, right? Until we hit our goal. And then you just don't freak out, because for some people, going up in calories is really hard, especially if we've always been taught that we're trying to decrease our weight or eat less calories. So, right? Right. We all struggle with it, and watching that scale change, it's normal. All right. I feel like this is the stuff that Renee and I talk about all the time. So the basics, we want to keep it simple. The most impactful strategies: choosing more whole foods, limiting those processed foods as much as possible, focusing on your protein, Getting enough fiber. We didn't talk about fiber yet, but that's right under our protein needs. So it's going to promote your digestive health. It regulates your blood sugar, enhances your gut health, lowers cholesterol, reduces hunger. That's a big reason to want to get that in there. Resistance training, we've already talked about why that's important. Making sure you're hydrated, getting that water in. I will say that I've recently learned that studies show that coffee is almost as hydrating as water, so you can track your coffee. That does not mean you don't drink water and you only drink coffee. However, I used to tell people your coffee didn't count, and I believe that is not true anymore. It counts. Correct. That's not what we want. I'm just saying it does go towards your daily goal, and that sometimes can be a challenge for people to hit also. All right, supplements. So the purpose of supplements, exactly in the name of the title, it's to add in something that you're not able to get elsewhere, okay? So if you're not getting it somewhere else, you have to decide if you should be taking a supplement. Don't worry about you don't need fat burners and like spending a ton of money on these gimmicky type things. Very basic things that we're talking about that are going to actually give you a boost that you need. A multivitamin. How boring is that? Do I want everybody in here taking a multivitamin? Yes, I do. I want all of you to take your daily vitamin just like you make your kids. Yes, take your vitamin. If you do nothing else, take a multivitamin, okay? It's boring, it's simple, but I want you to do it. Protein powders, if you can't hit your protein, we add in the protein powder. Most of us do that, have a shake a day. Do I want you only having protein powder for your protein? No, especially if you're doing intermittent fasting or something where it's hard to get that, that protein in. You're going to need another way to add it in because that eating window is so small and you're so full, right? My vegans, vegetarians, plant-based people might need to supplement with protein. And there's different kinds, and you have to find the kind that works for you. But there's nothing wrong with using it as a supplement, okay? Again, I don't want you coming in and saying, I had 2 protein shakes today and 3 protein bars and a chicken breast. That's not what we're saying. We switch it the other way. And then creatine, super beneficial, very safe. I would suggest also everybody take creatine. So a lot of health benefits, increases your muscle mass and strength, yes. Performance in the gym, yes. There's a big piece about cognitive brain function. And for my vegans, vegetarians, plant-based people, you'll get a bigger boost from creatine in that cognitive piece because you're not getting it from the animal protein. A lot of other people are already getting some if you're eating animal protein. If you're not, you're going to notice that piece of it more than everybody else. But it's super safe. There's the most data on creatine. And once you start it, you have to just keep it continuously, okay? So you have to build it up into your system and just maintain. I don't. I know I've talked to some people that do. I just started at my dose and just maintained at that dose. I'm sure it depends probably on your goals. I don't know if you have. I've never stacked it. Yeah. And just a little blip on the creatine. It does not cause bloat. It causes hydration of your muscles. Okay. So bloat is liquid or water under the skin above the muscle, right? Inflammation looking. It hydrates the muscle, which is what you want, your muscles to look rounded and feeling good. It's a good thing. Okay. So you'll hear, especially women are like, I don't want creatine. It causes bloat. It doesn't cause bloat. It's going to pull that water into your muscles. Okay, let's talk macros real quick. Protein, it's essential. You have to have it. You'll die without it. You need it for building and repairing muscle tissue. You get it from things like meat, fish, eggs, dairy, nuts, legumes. Carbohydrates, they are not essential. You won't die without them, but I think you should have some because they're good for energy. And that's one of our biggest sources of energy, especially when you have performance-based workouts. So fruits, veggies, those are all carbs. Even your like salads and things like that, those are carbs. Rice, pasta, bread, your more starchy stuff, right? And then fats, also essential, also need it or you'll die. Necessary for storing energy, hormone production, organ protection, oils, avocados, nuts, etc. Protein and carbs are both 4 calories per gram, and then fat is 9 calories per gram. And I didn't put up there, but alcohol is your 4th macro, and it's 7 calories per gram, and it has 0 nutritional benefit. No judgment.
And it takes about 36 hours after drinking to have it fully go away from your system.
No judgment.
Just it.
You can have it. We're just telling you information. Okay, so here's some examples of some macro splits. And again, we'll help you with this, guys. You guys don't have to get like super crazy on it. An example of a keto split might be 25% protein, again, moderate protein, only 5% carbs, and 70% fat. Carnivore, kind of the same thing, except 0 carbs, 75% fat, still 25% protein. The protein can be higher if they're focusing on more lean. I can send this stuff to you guys too. Yeah, I'll let you guys have it. Don't worry. If it's more lean, but a lot, like I said, a lot of it tends to be more popular with men, the carnivore diet, and they tend to really like the red meat type stuff. Okay. Barbecue, think barbecue. Okay, low carb, moderate fat might look like 40% protein, 20% carbs, 20% fat. An even split, 30, 30, 30 across the board. High protein, again, 40%, might be 25% carbs, might be 35% protein or fat. And then custom, you're gonna figure out your macros yourself. And this is something that will help you guys with. I customize mine. I would guess you probably customize yours. And so an example of customizing macros, what we typically do is figure out your protein first, because that's where we want you guys to hit your protein targets, right? So we're gonna figure out what that looks like for you. It might not actually be your 1 gram per 1 pound of goal body weight. If your protein is very, very low, we're gonna aim for more. And it's gonna take a little while for you to get more comfortable eating more protein, because again, it's very filling, it's very satiating, and it takes a while for your body to get used to it. Anybody who's started trying to hit their protein, all we hear when they come in, it is so hard. I'm so full, it's so hard. So we would work up to that. So we would figure out our protein first. So here's an example. My goal weight's 150 pounds. These are just general numbers. My weight loss calories, say they're 2,000 calories a day. 150 grams of protein per day is what I'm gonna aim for. We're gonna times that by 4 calories, because there's 4 calories per gram. So 600 of my daily calories are gonna be from protein, and that's 30% of my 200 or 2,000 calorie a day diet plan, okay? Choosing how you split up the other two, there's so many ways you can do that, okay? You can do an even split. You can do based off of preference. You can do based off of history, knowing how you respond better to carbs or fats. You can change it. One day you're higher fat versus higher carb based off of what you have to do that day in your workout. Cody, I think you probably change things based off of like performance for races and things like that, right? You might up your carbs or things like that. I don't really care how those other things fall apart or fall into line. And I encourage you guys to try different things to see how you feel best. But I will say this, be really honest about how you feel on any diet that you choose. What we start to see is when you get so excited because the scale is moving in the right direction, I feel great. And then when that diet stops working, and then we talk to you a few months after that, and then you go, did you feel great? You said you felt great. Well, yeah, I mean, I thought I felt great, but actually my sleep was really crappy, or I had 0 energy. So in the process, being honest with ourselves, like, do I actually feel great, or I'm just happy that the scale's moving in the direction that I want? Because you can have all of it. You can have a plan that's gonna work for you and get you towards your goals, and you feel good on, and it should, okay? Quick do's and don'ts. We do say to track. We do say focus on whole foods, prioritize protein, be consistent, okay? Throughout the week, throughout the month. Consistency is key. I think that's a big one for a lot of people. Plan for your challenges ahead of time. We know when we have holidays. We know when we have birthdays. We do want you to know how to enjoy those and be able to enjoy those without feeling guilty. And there's totally ways to do that. So plan for it ahead of time, and there's strategies to do that. Feel your feelings. So if we use food as a way to not have to feel our feelings, or alcohol, so your feelings are your feelings. It's just a vibration in your body. It's not going to hurt you. You just sit in it. Feel bad for a little bit, and that's fine. And then really pay attention to the non-scale changes. How's your mood? How's your sleep, your strength, your energy, your libido, your digestion? Like, those are all really important things. Scale's great. Fantastic. That makes up your everyday entire life, right? How are we feeling the rest of the time? Don't undereat. So less is not always better, or even with your workouts, more is not always better. People are like, oh, I'm in a deficit and I'm losing consistently, so I'm just going to drop my deficit more. You don't want to do that. It's going to backfire on you. You're going to end up overeating, okay? So It's the long game. Just stay in there. Same thing with workouts. I feel great on 4 workouts a week. I'm going to come in and do 7. I give myself 0 rest. Now my recovery's gone. Now my cortisol's up. Now my sleep is bad. Now I'm not processing my food so great. And my success is going to go down. So we have to always think about that. Weekday dieter, overeater on the weekends. Anybody? All right. So some of the apps actually have an option for changing your calories based off of the day of the week. And some people choose, and then keeping the overall week's calories in that average. That's totally fine to do, as long as you are in that week overall staying to your average. But what happens is people stay on their normal plan for the week, and then it's all out on the weekend. So now they're either at maintenance or above. And so you want to make sure that you are averaging it out for the entire week, okay? Don't change your plan after just a couple weeks. It's probably not long enough unless you feel terrible. But we want you guys to check in with us. We're going to be checking in with you consistently. We'll help you pivot when you need to pivot. We don't want anybody feeling bad, and we'll give you suggestions of what to do. But 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks really is not that long. So sometimes we get just really impatient, and I want you guys to be in it and let your body do what it needs to do. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. If it's not going in the wrong direction and it's not going, that's great. We might stay there for a little bit and just see, like, stay the course and see how that plays out. And then don't be afraid to fail or decide that that's not the plan for you. Again, we've both tried lots of things in our life. They've probably worked at periods for us, and then decided, okay, that's not for me anymore, maybe this, and eventually get to a point that we find something that we can kind of stay consistent. I want you guys to do that. You don't have to stick with your plan forever. Let's see what works for you, okay?
I've also tried a lot of long things.
Yeah, I think we all have. We can absolutely share that. That's a good point. I actually meant to say before we started, trigger warning, a little late, sorry, trigger warning. If you have a history with disordered eating, we don't necessarily want you doing all of these things. Talk to us. There's still ways for you guys to hit your goals, but we don't want to add any obsessive behaviors, any anxiety. This should not be a negative process for you guys. So if there's a history there or you're worried about that, there's still things for you guys to do. And like she said, she has experience, and probably with a lot of other people as well, just in the community that you were part of with figure skating. So, okay, everybody got a nutrition planning worksheet. You can use this or not, but these are the things that we want you to turn into us. You don't have to turn it in today, but we do want to know what your plans are. We do want to know what your goals are in terms of, for this fitness challenge. We're going to help you figure out macros if you don't know how to do that, how you're going to track your food, what kind of diet plan you plan to follow for your deficit or surplus, whatever it is. And you can write, there's areas for explanations under each thing. And then kind of your approach and a couple questions and a little section for other notes. You can write all over it, whatever you need, okay? It's just a general little guide. And then you guys got the hand portion cheat sheet. So just some little visuals to help you. Even when you kind of Google what's a portion size of this, there's variances. So some sites might say it's a cup of fruit. Some might say it's a half a cup of fruit. That doesn't matter, but you're going to be consistent, and you're going to know overall in your macros for the day, how much of that do you get? And then you know how to measure it. Okay. Okay. That's that. Let's go for questions, and then we can kind of dive in if you guys would like us to help you in terms of working on that worksheet or figuring out macros. No questions. There's literally no. I'm so good. I gave you everything. Your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, yes. Yeah, it is actually on your in-body scan. And that brings up a good point. So some of the macro or calorie trackers will have you add back in your exercise, and you'll, hook it up to your watch or things like that. Typically, my preference is that that's already accounted for in your calories that we've done in our formulation, okay? I think MyFitnessPal might not put that in there, or it used to not, and that's why I would always add it in. There's a toggle switch on all of your apps that you can turn that off. I always turn that off. Turn it off. We've already figured out your calories. You're not eating back. We already talked about how much you are active in a day. This is your average, so you don't have to eat back those calories, okay? So thank you for actually bringing that up. Okay, other questions?
When are we like meeting with you to go over macros?
Well, we're gonna do a little bit today, whatever we can get done, probably in like the next 20 minutes, we'll help you guys. And we don't care how you want to look those up. If you have an app that you like to use, they'll figure that out for you. If you want to look something up on the computer, there's lots of different apps. They're similar, and there will be some differences. You might get 3 different breakdowns using 3 different apps, because there's a couple different equations that they use, and also how you're choosing your activity level. I don't worry about it too much. Again, we're trying to find our baseline, and then we'll help you guys as we go. Like, if this isn't working, then something's wrong with the calories. We might have to reevaluate, but we'll help you with that now. And then if we don't get to it today, check in with us, and we'll plan a time to like get on a call with you and whatever we need to do so that you guys understand what we're doing. And you're welcome to look it up at home and then say, hey, I found this. Does this make sense? But what I'll want your body scan detail. I want your weight, your age. There's a little detail sheet like on the second page of your InBody app. And I like to see that visually. It has your BMR, and that way I can just look at that and your calories and macros to help you with that. So if you haven't done your scan yet, I want you guys to get those done sooner rather than later. Not now, before your workouts and stuff. Okay. Other questions?
Is there a place that has a list of everything to sign up for the challenge altogether, including like what exactly is sent for the InBody, where that plan is, how we submit that?
We don't have the QR code ready yet, right? Okay, so we'll have it ready tomorrow. So usually have a QR code, and in there will be everything. It will have the Google form where you submit, you'll input your InBody stats, but you'll also submit that stuff to the challenge email along with your photos and everything. So we'll have the app ready, or the QR code, ready. That'll list everything in there. And so really all it is, just quickly, you guys are gonna do your scans, you're gonna take your photos, you're gonna fill out the Google sheet, and you're gonna send your scans and photos to a challenge email, and we're gonna do these worksheets, or your own worksheet, whatever that looks like, okay? Oh, yeah. It's right here. Yeah, did you give, oh, no, give them that. I gave them a worksheet. I'm sorry, I thought you guys had those. Okay. Yeah, okay, so it's this, and I showed it up here. It was that, but we have it right here. Again, it's just a guide to help you guys kind of know what information I want. You can add things or take away. Okay. Thank you. Okay, when you go on your InBody app, this is the front page. You're gonna tap right there, it says detail, and you're gonna scroll down to the bottom. See that page? You can download that, and that's what I like to see. That's what I like. Yeah. And also because I can see in a snapshot your past scans as well. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop this part.